Welcome to a brand new deep dive. We are so glad you are joining us today. You know, when we think about building something impressive today, uh, we almost always default to the image of a skyscraper.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like you clear the lot, you pour the concrete, and you immediately start stacking steel into the clouds as fast as humanly possible.
Because everyone walking by can see the progress day by day.
Right, that visibility is the entire point. But imagine if, instead of building up, the construction crew spent years, maybe even decades, just digging down, pouring time, sweat, and resources into a massive, complex underground foundation that no one on the street will ever actually see.
You'd probably think they were out of their minds.
Exactly. Or at least, terrible at business.
Well, the immediate assumption would be a complete lack of efficiency. I mean, we live in a culture that celebrates the speed of the ascent.
Right. If you aren't on the 50th floor while everyone else is still in the lobby, you're losing.
Precisely. But the source material we are diving into today, which is an excerpt from a text titled Beyond Success, a life that multiplies, well, it argues that our modern obsession with building that 50th floor is actually the greatest threat to genuine human transformation.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to explore why this text claims that prioritizing visible, measurable success over invisible structural growth is basically a recipe for a collapse.
And just to set the stage impartially right here at the start, this source material specifically approaches the concept of success through a Christian theological lens.
Right, and our goal today isn't to preach or to endorse a specific worldview to you, the listener, but to really explore this author's framework.
Exactly. We want to understand the mechanics of this profound tension between outward achievement and inner character. The text essentially argues that modern culture treats success like that skyscraper, grow fast, get big, be seen.
Right.
But it insists that true, resilient human growth is agricultural. It operates on the timeline of a tree.
A tree. Yeah, because a tree has to push its roots deep into the dark, hard soil before it can ever safely support heavy branches or fruit.
Right.
If we look at the digital age we live in, the environment relentlessly rewards three things: visibility, productivity, and expansion. We're conditioned by algorithms to measure our impact in real time.
And the text cautions that this creates a very dangerous trap. You can achieve massive outward influence like millions of followers, immense viral reach, while remaining completely hollow on the inside.
Completely empty. So to understand why modern metrics of success are flawed according to the text, we have to look at the historical and biblical pattern the author contrasts them against.
Right. The author introduces this concept called the hidden season.
The hidden season. I like it.
It's fascinating. The argument is that modern metrics create an illusion of progress. Because the numbers on a screen are going up, we just assume we are moving forward.
Number goes up, we must be doing good.
Exactly. But the framework presented here prioritizes transformation over influence. When you look at the primary figures in this text, their timelines are, well, they're shocking by today's standards.
They spent lifetimes doing seemingly nothing of public value.
Decades of nothing. I mean, Moses spends 40 years wandering in a wilderness, herding sheep in total obscurity before he ever steps up to lead Israel.
40 years.
And David is a forgotten shepherd boy long before he takes a throne.
Right.
After his dramatic conversion, the Apostle Paul actually withdraws into the desert for years to recalibrate his entire worldview before launching his public ministry.
He just unplugs completely.
Completely. And Jesus, the central figure of this framework, spends 30 years in complete obscurity in a rural village before beginning a public ministry that only lasts 3 years.
Okay, wait, I have to push back here. If influence is a good thing, doesn't our digital age just make us more efficient? I mean, it feels like the author is saying we should skip the fast lane and intentionally choose the scenic, bumpy route. Why? If you have the tools to reach the world instantly, isn't that a good thing?
What's fascinating here is how the author addresses that exact friction. It's through this concept of being rooted before fruitful.
Rooted before fruitful.
Yeah, it references a passage in the book of Colossians, chapter 2, verses 6 and 7, which uses that specific agricultural metaphor. The text argues that skipping the hidden season doesn't make a person efficient, it makes them structurally fragile.
Fragile. How so?
To understand the mechanics of this, we have to look at the Greek word metamorpho, used in Romans 12.2 when the text talks about human transformation.
Metamorpho. That's the root of the word metamorphosis.
Yes. And think about what metamorphosis actually entails biologically. It is not a caterpillar putting on a cute little butterfly suit.
Oh, definitely not. It's gross.
It is. When a caterpillar enters a chrysalis, it literally dissolves into a biological soup. Its entire previous structure breaks down completely before the imaginal cells can rebuild it into a butterfly. It is a violent, profound, internal teardown.
Wow.
This framework argues that human ego requires a similar breakdown. You have to dissolve the deep-seated pride, the need for approval, and the self-reliance.
And you're saying that can't happen in public?
Right. That kind of structural breakdown cannot happen on a public stage while you are trying to manage a brand. It requires the dark. It requires a protective shell.
That makes a lot of sense. If you rip open a chrysalis early, just to give the caterpillar like visibility and show everyone how it's doing, you kill the butterfly.
You destroy the entire process. If you accelerate a tree's growth upward by pumping it full of artificial fertilizers,
Right.
but you don't give it the harsh environment required to force its roots deep into the earth, what happens?
It falls over.
You end up with a massive tree with a shallow root system. The second a real storm hits, say a moral failing, a massive public critique, a personal tragedy, that fast-growing tree collapses under its own weight.
Because it never developed the invisible roots of humility and surrender required to sustain the height.
Exactly.
Okay, so if the goal is this profound internal breakdown and rebuild, you'd assume having access to endless information would speed up the process. I mean, you listening right now have access to thousands of theological podcasts, historical deep dives, and philosophical debates right in your pocket.
Sure.
But the text highlights a massive paradox here.
It's really the defining paradox of the information age. We have unprecedented, instantaneous access to truth and wisdom, yet we are experiencing a catastrophic crisis of deep spiritual formation.
It's wild.
The author points to a verse, 1 Corinthians 8:1, which states bluntly, "Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up." The text argues that the gap between knowing a piece of truth and actually allowing that truth to alter your behavior is the greatest challenge we face. Speed has increased, but wisdom has not.
Oh, here's where it gets really interesting. It's like we've confused reading the menu with actually eating the meal.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
We think because we follow smart accounts or listen to sermons, we are magically transformed. To use a dietary analogy, algorithmic influence, an endless scrolling act like pure sugar.
Just empty calories.
Exactly. It provides this immediate caloric energy, a quick spike of dopamine, because we feel like we just learned something profound. We mistake the thrill of a new idea for actual personal growth.
But then comes the crash.
Right. The hidden season the text describes is more like complex carbohydrates.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It takes significantly longer for the body to break down. It doesn't give you that instant rush, but it actually sustains your vital organs under extreme stress. Reading the nutritional facts on a box of spinach doesn't magically make your body healthy.
We constantly confuse the consumption of information with the application of wisdom. And this illusion of progress creates what the text calls the crisis of credibility.
The crisis of credibility.
Yeah. We live in an environment absolutely dominated by curated realities. Artificial intelligence, altered images, algorithmic echo chambers. It means that authenticity is under constant suspicion.
Oh, for sure. You never know what's real anymore.
Right. And the framework argues that the world is completely exhausted by loud voices and slick marketing campaigns. It doesn't need better arguments. What breaks through the noise are lives of undeniable integrity.
Because integrity requires a time horizon that an algorithm simply cannot fake.
Exactly. And this brings us to a foundational theological mechanic in the text. Conversion, the moment someone adopts a faith or changes their mind, is merely walking through the front door. It is just the starting line.
Okay.
The lifelong, grueling process that follows is known as sanctification.
Sanctification.
Right. If conversion is buying the house, sanctification is tearing down all the rotten load-bearing walls and completely rewiring the electricity. It is the agonizing process of moving past information and enduring actual formation.
So if consuming endless content is actually making us intellectually bloated but structurally fragile, how does this author suggest we actually build this foundation?
Well, that's the thing. The text doesn't just leave us with a critique.
Right. It gives us some actionable steps.
It provides a highly specific blueprint outlining 5 interconnected pillars of spiritual architecture.
Okay, let's explore the friction between these pillars, starting with the first 2, doctrine and disciplines.
So doctrine is presented not as a list of stuffy academic rules, but as the foundational operating system. It is the compass that anchors a person against shifting cultural winds.
Because without a solid operating system, you will simply run whatever software the culture uploads into your brain that day.
Exactly, you're just reacting. But doctrine alone remains theoretical, which is why it must be paired with disciplines.
Disciplines being the actual physical friction of building muscle.
Yes, practices like prayer, which it frames as relationship, meditating on scripture, fasting, and worship. The text frames these not as obligations to earn favor, but as mechanisms of dependence.
Interesting.
Take fasting, for example. In this framework, fasting isn't a hunger strike to manipulate God into giving you what you want.
Right.
It is a diagnostic tool. By depriving your body of its primary coping mechanism, which is food, you expose what is actually going on in your heart. You see how quickly you become irritable, impatient, or anxious, which reveals your profound lack of internal peace.
That is a harsh mirror to look into.
It really is.
Look, I know a lot of our listeners are thinking about the next pillar, which is community, and feeling immediate resistance.
I'm sure.
A highly independent, perhaps introverted listener might say, look, I get a lot more out of a quiet walk in the woods alone than I do sitting in a messy, dramatic group of people. I don't need a social club to grow.
Yeah, that's a very common modern sentiment.
So how does this framework respond to the idea that some people genuinely transform better in isolation?
Well, the author takes a firm stance that spiritual isolation is a complete mirage.
A mirage.
Yeah. The text references Hebrews 3.13, which commands people to encourage one another daily so they aren't hardened by deceitfulness. In this framework, community is not a social club where you hang out with people who share your exact hobbies.
Okay.
It is an abrasive training ground. Humans are like rough rocks put into a tumbler. It is the friction of bumping up against other flawed people that smooths out your edges.
Ah, so it's a sandbox where all the theory you learned in the doctrine phase actually gets tested.
Exactly. You cannot learn humility in a vacuum. You cannot learn to forgive if there is no one around to deeply offend you.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
If your faith is entirely private, you only ever interact with a version of reality that you control. Community shatters that control, forcing you to apply the disciplines in real time.
Which leads directly into the fourth pillar, service.
Yeah.
This acts as the ultimate antidote to the individualism of modern self-improvement. The author points to the historical account of Jesus washing his disciples' feet. In the ancient Roman world, this was a task strictly reserved for the absolute lowest-ranking servant in a household.
It was incredibly degrading work.
Yeah, so for the leader of a movement to strip down and wash the dirt off the feet of his followers completely short-circuits the human power dynamic.
It completely redefines maturity. In a corporate skyscraper model, maturity means you have people serving you. You've made it to the corner office.
Right, you're at the top.
But in this agricultural model, maturity is expressed by how low you are willing to stoop to serve others. And this prevents the community from becoming just a stagnant pool, which ties into the fifth and final pillar, mission.
Mission. So that is the outward focus. It's taking the transformation that happened in the dark, in the hidden season, and turning it outward.
Yes. And it's crucial to understand that these 5 pillars, doctrine, disciplines, community, service, and mission, they are not a sequential checklist.
You don't just check the boxes.
No, you don't graduate from one and move to the next. They form a living ecosystem. Doctrine informs the disciplines. Disciplines give you the patience required to endure community.
Right.
Community provides the context for service. And service is the engine of the mission. If you remove any one of these load-bearing pillars, the structure warps.
Okay, so assume this architecture is in place. The living ecosystem is functioning, the roots are deep, and the person has endured the hidden season. How do we measure the output of this life?
That is the big question.
Because we just spent the entire conversation throwing out follower counts, viral metrics, and visible expansion. If we aren't measuring scale, what is the metric of success?
The text argues for a very specific mathematical concept. Multiplication versus addition.
Multiplication versus addition.
Yes. Addition is reaching 1,000 people from a stage today. Multiplication is investing your entire life into 3 people who then invest their lives into 3 more people, continuing generation after generation.
Wow, this is a fascinating contrast to the modern viral marketing machine.
It really is.
I mean, a viral campaign relies on a massive spike.
Yeah.
You get 10 million views in a single week, everyone talks about it, and then 3 weeks later, it completely disappears from the cultural memory.
Poof. Gone.
Exactly.
Oh.
It has massive reach, but zero retention. True apprenticeship is the exact opposite. It's not about getting a million views on a video. It's about pouring your life into 3 people who pour their lives into 3 more. It's exponential generational math.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author points to the methodology of Jesus as the ultimate case study in multiplication.
Okay.
He constantly had vast crowds ready to crown him as a political king. He could have scaled his platform instantly.
Should have gone totally viral.
Exactly. Instead, he repeatedly walked away from the massive crowds to spend years investing deeply in just 12 ordinary men. The strategy wasn't to build a monolithic institution. It was to build a resilient network of transformed characters.
Yeah, the text brings up a passage from 2 Timothy 2.2 to show the layers of this generational math. It outlines a chain reaction. What you have heard from me, entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others.
Right.
That is 4 distinct generations of leadership in one sentence. It's totally exponential.
And think about the sociological phenomenon of the early Christian church. It didn't spread across the Roman Empire through sophisticated communication networks, political action committees, or massive media campaigns.
Yeah, they didn't have any of that.
It spread through a contagion of transformed lives. The text highlights a moment in Acts 4.13 where highly educated, powerful observers looked at these uneducated fishermen and were astonished. The text says, they took note that these men had been with Jesus.
Their credibility wasn't found in their rhetorical skill or their polished presentation.
No.
Their undeniable credibility was the radical change in their character.
Exactly. In a culture totally obsessed with scaling up as fast as possible, this completely redefines legacy. It measures success by quiet faithfulness rather than loud fame. The argument here is that influence built solely on charisma, outrage, or cultural momentum is deeply unstable and eventually fades. But influence built upon the slow, agonizing work of transformed character continues to shape reality long after the original person is gone.
Even the smallest, most invisible act of obedience or mentorship, when it is genuinely multiplied through the lives of other people, changes the world in ways you will never live to see.
The math outlives the mathematician.
I love that. The math outlives the mathematician.
It is a quiet, profound strength. The thesis of this entire framework basically boils down to this. The greatest, most enduring success a human being can pursue is not the expansion of a platform, but the fundamental transformation of the heart.
This forces all of us to seriously evaluate our own daily rhythms.
Yeah.
I mean, you listening right now, are you confusing the constant intake of information, reading the books, listening to the deep dives, scrolling the debates with actual applied wisdom? Are you spending all your energy trying to build a taller skyscraper? Or are you willing to do the unglamorous, uncelebrated work of digging down and cultivating deep roots?
I want to leave everyone with a final thought experiment to really test the strength of those roots. Considering everything this text argues about the trap of algorithmic influence and the necessity of the hidden season, imagine if a global digital blackout happened tomorrow morning.
Oh, wow. A total reset of the board.
Yes, your follower count vanishes permanently. Your digital resume is erased. The group chats, the platforms, the analytics gone. No one outside of your immediate physical vicinity could ever track, validate, or applaud your productivity ever again.
That is a terrifying thought for a lot of people.
It is. But in that profound silence, what kind of actual sustaining fruit would your life still be producing for the people sitting right next to you at the dinner table?
Wow. When the skyscraper is forcibly brought down, all that remains is the foundation you bothered to pour in the dark. That is definitely something to mull over. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the metrics, keep exploring, and we will catch you next time.